Hi all, welcome back to another stream on the channel then. Welcome back to the final whistle then. So, this evening we're going to discuss about utilising the academy then. Obviously we've had some good academy graduates come through, haven't we, over the years? Andy King, Harvey Barnes, King and Dewsbury Hall. Luke Thomas has come through the academy as well, hasn't he? So, tonight we are going to discuss the academy ahead of the new season. Which ones could make it? Which ones do you see potentially giving it a run for the starting 11 next season? Jake Evans, Jeremy Monger, Olabode Aluko, Jaden Joseph, Silko Thomas is another one in there as well, isn't he? Wanya Marcel. We're going to talk about Ben Nelson. We're going to talk about Will Alves because that ones have also come through. Stolasic has come through, hasn't he? The academy. So we're going to discuss it all. I'm going to give my little verdict on what I watched yesterday. We're going to chat about each individual player and what we actually think. If there's anyone who watches the under-23s, then let me know your initial thoughts. Clibo, how are we? Kuno, how are we? Hey, Joe, how you doing? Good win for Leicester yesterday. Yeah, it was good. Don't forget King and Dewsbury Hall. I did mention King and Dewsbury Hall. What a player. We've never had a big group come through at once. Exciting times. Yeah, no, I agree. With Leicester, it's always been single ones come out of the academy, innit? You know, and we've always let the big ones slip where they go on to other clubs like Calvin Bassett, who could have done something at Leicester, but we ended up letting him go. Is it Madafadua? Is he the other one as well? Madafadua? Is he still at the club? Did he go out on loan last season? Madafadua. There'll big talk about him. What about Mark Albright, mate? Mark Albright was not for our academy. I think he even came through Aston Villa's academy, Mark Albrighton, but that's another thing. Guys, as always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you know, and you haven't subscribed already. Please get down and do so. That'd help me out massively. Follow us on Twitter. If you're watching us on X, it is better known as Twitter. I bloody keep calling it Twitter. But it is what it is. But yeah, let's get into it all then, and let's discuss. There's quite a few of you watching on YouTube. Big up everyone who's watching on X. And let's get it started. We are going to get Clibo in. If Clibo wants to come and join me to discuss everything to do with Leicester City. Evening, Reese. How are we, mate? Hope you're well. I've sent a link out for anyone who wants to come and join me, come and have a chat. It'd be appreciated. Do you remember Esteban Cambiasso? I do, mate. So tonight's discussion is how do Leicester City utilise the academy to their advantage at Seagrave? Is the big question, because Ruud van Nistelrooy last season, it's like he got forced to use it because Jeremy Monger was very much in the spotlight last year, wasn't he, with the under-23s? It was absolutely ripping it up. Let's be fair, some of the goals that he scored, the take-ons, Jake Evans was doing bits as well. So, yeah, another one who came through the academy, man like Hamza Chowdhury, by the way. Big up Hamza. So, yeah, let's discuss it. So if anyone wants to join, like I say, the stream link is there. Hello, Ant. How are we? Just making a cup and then I'll join you. And if you want to come in and discuss Leicester City with me, mate, I've sent the link out. You can come and talk to me through your charity thing that you did today, which is fantastic. So if anyone hasn't donated to Ant, please go and do so. I will get him to discuss it if he comes on and has a chat. then I believe he raised £500 today, doing his thing. I'll join, but I feel absolutely. I'd like to see the young strikers play next week. Yeah, I'm in agreement. So, the first one we're going to discuss, actually, before we talk about the youngsters coming through for this season, is, I tell you what, I want to discuss this man, Ben Nelson. Ben Nelson came through the academy from Enzo Maresca's time at Leicester, made a few championship appearances, and went to Oxford on loan and was Oxford's best player, highly rated by Oxford fans. They wanted to keep him. Very shrewd centre-back, very much holds his own. He's very commanding centre-half, good with his feet. And, Ben Nelson is one that I feel will be very much in the Leicester City thinking of things ahead of the new season. Proven well. He's also played at England level, hasn't he, Ben Nelson? So he's one that I think would do very well next season. He's still young, still learning. It's who you're partnering with is another thing for next season to even think about. So who would you partner Ben Nelson with? But Ben Nelson is good. Obviously, he's had the Chelsea links, hasn't he? I think he would very much be utilised quite well for the Championship. And I think he's one that can get very much better again. Ben Nelson over Fass any day of the week. Would you play Vestergaard or Okoli? See, what I watched yesterday, I stick with my Okoli and Ben Nelson situation. I stick by it. I'm not going to change my mind. I stick by it. Ben Nelson is the complete package. He is fast, composed, and he looks like a leader. I'd say future captain. Do you know what? I agree. I agree with that. What's got to happen to Woyo? Woyo's back in training as well, for anyone who hasn't realised. I know the club haven't mentioned it. Monger will get a chance for next season. We're going to touch on Monger very shortly. Ben Nelson, like I say, commanding defender. He's captain material, isn't he? You know, I think he worked well with Caleb Okoli yesterday. You can build that connection if you utilise it correctly in consistent runner games between them both. And I think he's a very good up-and-coming defender, Ben Nelson. I think he can go and play for a bigger club at some point. I don't see why he can't. The future is bright for him. And he's a real good talent. And I think if we utilise him quite well for next season in consistent runner games and that, and can really make a mark on the first team, then why not? What was Rudkin doing? I don't know. He looked like in my picture that I took, he were bloody beatboxing. You know what I mean? So I don't know what he were doing. He were on the phone yesterday. Now we've covered Ben Nelson. We are going to cover this man, Will Alves. This lad's got potential. Will Alves, this guy can be very much utilised. The talent's there. The potential for Will Alves is crazy. Let's be fair. Last season, he went on loan to Cardiff and did quite well for Cardiff, to be fair. Cardiff fans wanted to keep him. They said, we've got a right good player on our hands here. I wonder if Leicester would let him come. But no, Leicester, we're never going to sell him. Let's be fair. Come through the academy, raving reviews about Will Alves. He can play out through the middle of the centre attacking midfield role. He can also go wing if he is very much versatile. Will Alves in his attacking roles. I think he's quite good, to be fair, in my opinion. Right, there we are. Clibo, how are we?
I'm all right, mate. Yourself?
I'm all right. Right. I've touched on Ben Nelson. I'm now on to Will Alves.
Yeah.
What do you think? The show is called Utilising the Academy. Leicester have utilised it in the past, haven't they? Bringing Hamza, Dewsbury Hall, Harvey Barnes, Ben Chilwell came through. Luke Thomas has come through the academy. There's obviously the young foxes now that are coming on the way through, aren't they? Like your Mongers and that. Obviously, Ben Nelson has come through, Stolarsic. And the list really goes on. But last season with Ruud van Nistelrooy, it sort of felt that he were forced to use the young players, you know. But then you look at what you've got, your Ben Nelsons and Will Alves. How would you feel with how Leicester City utilised them to going into the 25-26 championship season?
Well, I tend to follow the under-23s. I mean, but back in the day, there used to be Wednesday night football down at Filbert Street, and it was the reserves.
Yeah.
And you get to see a few of the kids there. And I've kind of followed the youth as best as I could from then. And I've said, I've stuck my neck out here a little bit, but I've said Will Alves will be our player of the season. I genuinely think he has all the attributes to be a top player. I think he's not particularly good at one thing, but I think he's good at a whole lot of a really good standard at a lot of things. And I think he's got a very intelligent football brain. And I think that, don't get me wrong, there'll be better, more skilled players in the team, but I think he will contribute more than any other player in terms of assists and just being a bloody nuisance to other teams, to be honest with you. I really genuinely do. I think that Cardiff loan has probably done him the power of good. He looks confident.
Yeah.
When he's got the ball, he looks confident. And he's my pick of the bunch.
Fair enough. Reece, how are we?
All right, lads, how are you?
I'm all right. Clibbo, how do Leicester City utilise these academy players then? How do they sort of bed them into the first team? I mean, some of them can potentially take their place in the first team, potentially, and give it a good run. That'd show hunger and dedication for the hard work that they can go and produce throughout pre-season. So, you know what, I can get ahead of some of these older heads in the squad and prove to you why I can be better and more utilisable to what's being offered at the minute. So how do you sort of see that with Leicester City sort of bedding them into the first team?
Well, I think there's a psychology element to it, and I think you get the right man in, and I think Kingy is doing a great job of that at the moment. You tell these lads that you're not just the young academy, you're the future of the club, and you do everything necessary to convince them that they have the abilities, the opportunities to get ahead of some of these, what I would say, very rich journeymen now, and utilise them with that in mind in pre-season. Make them feel like that they're wanted, they're needed, and they're going to play. And I mean, you know, there's 46 games, so there's an opportunity for lots of players to play at least 20 games. I think it's important that we use some of the experience. I think we seen that yesterday when we watched the two different the two different halves, where you had I thought a perfect blend of experience and youth. I thought Kingy did an exceptional job of picking two blends and two different styles. And I think going forward, I think you'll find that those lads will work for him. So he has to remain, crucially, I think, as part of the first team coaching setup at the very least.
Reece, obviously Leicester was spoken about the academy last season, wasn't it, under Ruud van Nistelrooy? Utilised very, very right at the end when it was called out for that they needed to go and use. They had nothing to lose at that point, putting the lads in and giving them an opportunity to show what they can do. You looked at Monger, Jake Evans, Aluko, Michael Golding, all played last season right at the end. What is your initial thoughts at the academy at Seagrave? I mean, how important is it for Leicester City to use their academy now to their advantage while they can?
Well, I think that's the whole point of Seagrave in the first place, was, you know, to build the infrastructure to build the academy up. I mean, we did have a good track record with academy, but this was to really push it with the Seagrave, with the facilities and the infrastructure. We've not really seen it since we've been at Seagrave. There's not many talents I can think of that have come through. I think Harvey Barnes and Hamza, they all came through from Beaver Drive. Yeah, Beaver Drive. So yeah, I think this season you'll start to see the Seagrave Academy project I've never seen that much talent on one pitch ever in a Leicester pre-season ever, so I think Kingy's done a great job with them ever since he's worked with the kids. And I do generally think we've got potentially some generational talents in players like Monger coming through where, but it's like Uncle Cliver keeps drilling into me. We have to be careful with them. We have to give them, they're still growing. They're still individuals growing. And I've had to kind of calm down on the if you're good enough, you're old enough, because at the end of the day, they're still kids. They're still growing as an individual. So physically, but no, overall, really excited about it this year. Let's hope it can really push on the project of Seagrave this season.
Clibo, Paul talks about the youth players showed the older heads to get the ball forward more quicker. I mean, they're very much fresh, aren't they, the young players? They're hungry, they're quick, they've got a bundle a lot of energy to some of these older heads like Connor Cody. You look at what Aluko was doing yesterday in pre-season against Peterborough, the pace, the drive, the dynamic of switching play, and the positioning were quite well. It were like it looked very much like an older head, like he'd done it for many years, Aluko, yesterday, and that kind of shows that they're improving, aren't they, with Andy King at the Seagrave at the minute until obviously the new manager comes in.
Well, I couldn't agree more with what Paul's comment there. I think one of the key factors is that, in my opinion, the first team is so separate from everything else that's going on at Seagrave. It's like a patchwork quilt team, where, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, these lads have been brought up together and they trust each other. I think when you watched games last season, there seemed to be a real lack of trust between the players. I'm sure they won't, ever admit that, but you could see that there was patterns of play that they should be playing, but they didn't. I found that very difficult to watch, and I think these lads are not being part of that, so are not affected in that negative way like that. They're not frightened, and I think obviously whatever we've said in the past about Seagrave, there's obviously a culture there of attacking football, which is another reason why the next appointment is crucial for the development of these players. Imagine them developing so well throughout the academy, and then we go and I know we're not going to hire Chris Wilder. I just know it. But imagine it would really stunt and potentially they would say, sod this, I'm going somewhere else. So it's crucial. The question at the beginning is, how do we utilize them? Well, utilizing them in the academy is great, into the first team. But if you're not going to get the best out of them, they might as well go. And for me, the appointment of somebody who can get the best out of them is crucial.
I agree. Reese, you've touched on this, man. Played were a lot for the academy last season in the under-23s. Quality, quick, desire, passion. He showed it all for the under-23s last season. He was raving reviews from every fan, not just Leicester, but all these other fans who were watching him from opposing clubs. How good is Jeremy Monger?
Yeah, I mean, we keep forgetting this kid's 15 years old. It's absolutely crazy. And for such a young lad, he's strong on the ball. He's very physical for his age. And that's what gives me the confidence for him to go and play a little bit more than probably the rest of the younger lads. But no, I mean, the way he skinned those two players yesterday for the first goal, it was, oh my God, it was just, they're the sort of players I want coming through to get me off my seat. Like that. I think, like I said, yesterday, I said the last one we had was Riyad Mahrez. We've not had a player since like that can get us off our feet and get excited. Then we can say, oh, we made him. He's one of us. So, and just touching what Uncle Clibo was saying about the kids there, that they trust each other. They've also got, when you're a kid and you're playing football, everyone wants to score goals. Everyone wanted to score the goals. No one wanted to, everyone wanted to get forward. Obviously, it was a bit more tactical and stuff, but yeah, on Monger, I mean, the kids just, I don't think, when Will Alves first come through, I thought, wow, this kid's, but I think this kid's even more special. I think with how talented he is, and we've got to do everything to make sure we're developing the right way. And then when the time does come for him to move on, we get obviously the right money for him. Because at the end of the day, a kid of that talent is not going to stay with us forever. But let's enjoy him while we've got him.
Clibbo, Sata talks about Monger. He was playing in the Premier League like it was Sunday League. It was bizarre. I mean, last season, Ruud van Nistelrooy did give him in the path into the first team, didn't he? Gave him a few good run of games. And you could see how quality Jeremy Monger was. You could see how really good he was on the ball, the way he could just take on players like they wasn't there. You looked at him in that Nottingham Forest game where he took on them 3 players on his own. That guy looks like he's been playing football for a very long time, but to say he's only 15 years old, he's 16 in a few days' time now. That guy is the rising star in football, and you can really see, can't you, Clibbo, why the Real Madrids were watching him, PSGs, Man Cities, some of the world's elite football clubs had an eye on Jeremy Monger, because that guy is special.
He is, and my hope is that we don't bog him down in systems, because I think players of that ability, like Reece said, they come once in a generation. You have very talented players, then you have players that are 15 and can walk onto a Premier League football pitch. And I would hate to see him stifled, because you know what? His brain in an instant will think better than any manager on the sideline. If his ability is there and he sees it, he should be allowed to go and do it. And I think, this is something this was just a negative aspect that I didn't like about Enzo. I respect the guy massively, and he's a great coach, and he got us promoted. But I think his systems would stifle that slightly. But I think you've got to let him be that little bit of maverick, and you'll see a wonderful player. And he's going to make mistakes, and he's going to give the ball away, and he's going to probably cost us a goal here and there. But you know what? I'll take that to watch that boy rip somebody a new one.
I agree. Reece, Monger is got the experienced players around him. How do you think Leicester City utilise him going forward now? Because he's now signed a scholarship with the club. He's going to sign that professional contract when he does reach a certain age. How do you sort of see Leicester now utilise him ahead of the 25-26 championship season into the first team?
I do think you'll see him more off the bench to start with. To start with, I do think you'll see Abdul on that right side more than Jeremy Monger. But I think as the season goes on, I do think you'll see him start. I do think he'll start a few. I think he'll start more than he'll come off the bench. I think he'll come off the bench initially, but I think then he'll start more games, which I'm all right with. I'm all right with as long as we get to see him, which I think we will quite a bit this season. But we've just got to be mindful, got to be careful. He's still only 16 years old nearly. So just got to be very careful. Because look at Will Alves and Sammy Braybrook suffered really bad injuries, and it's really knocked them back. You got to be careful that you don't do that with Monger, because we've made that mistake before. But I do think he's a match winner. I think he will win us games. If we're drawing 1-1 or if we're losing, he'll get you a goal because he's that magical. He can take on. I mean, like last season, there was 2 occasions where he absolutely skinned 2 or 3 Forest players. And then he skinned 2 or 3 Ipswich players. And I'm just like, oh my God, he's making a mockery out of these Premier League footballers. And Forest were challenging for top 4, and he was making a mockery out of them. And that's how good this kid is.
This guy has got the world at his feet, hasn't he, Clibbo? Position-wise, he's preferred position is believed to be centre attacking mid. Obviously, at the minute we've still got Bilal El-Khanous there, haven't we? Will Alves can play there. How do you think they'll sort of bed him in next season? I mean, where can you really realistically see him sort of working on in his position on the pitch? Do you think it'd be more out wide, or do you think it will be his preferred position that they'll sort of build him up to?
I think what they'll do is they will use him in a variety of positions across the top three, I think. And I think what they'll use this season for is to see where, you know, he's more useful and where his skills lend best. It's difficult to say where his best position is, because I think you could put that boy anywhere on the pitch and it would do you proud. I think he's got the ability to play anywhere on the pitch. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a great goalkeeper too. That's how good he is. But like I said, I'm trying not to get too excited about it, because I think this is a breakthrough season for him, where he'll make maybe 20 to 25 appearances, maybe start 20 games. And if you said, "Oh, you know, we need a number 10 today," he'll slot in. If we need a left winger, he'll slot in. If you need a right winger, he'll slot in. And I dare say that he's that good, he could probably play number 9 as well. So I think you'll see him across a variety of positions, see where he fits in, and going forward, maybe tailor him towards where they think. But what a utility player to have as an attacker.
I could see him and Will Alves fighting for that number 10 position, because me and Uncle Clibber have spoken about this quite a bit. Why not put El-Khanous in a number 8 role where he's more effective?
Position,
Yeah. Put him in the number 8 role where he can turn out of pressure, play in tight spaces, and that's what Jeremy Monger, with his ball control and his dribbling, he can play in tight spaces and he can unlock a defence in the centre of the park. Whereas I think on the left, preferring to see either on the right or in the centre, not on the left for me personally. I like seeing wingers cutting in on their right foot on the left.
Yesterday, did he?
What's you saying, Clibbo?
He didn't do bad on the left yesterday.
He didn't, no, but I like to see players like with left foots cutting in off the right, like Riyad did and Harvey Barnes did off the left on his right foot, because the wingers need to get goals nowadays. But that's just how I think. And I think him and Will Alves will fight for that number 10 position next season. I think Will Alves will have it initially, but then I think Monger might overtake him.
I was looking at him yesterday, Monger, and Clibbo picks up about the left-hand side. He handled himself well. The way he drives with the ball, and his main focus is to get it the players as best as he can. And he does that a lot. He's very much, his intelligence and his confidence is building. You can see how confident he is the more games he's been playing now, the more experience he's got in his game. He's developing very well. You could see yesterday when he did have the ball, he was never going to let that go. That was his ball, and that's it. You come and get it off him, innit? And they couldn't. And that showed Peterborough yesterday. They just couldn't get the ball off him. He'd beat them like there wasn't there. And he'd set up the goal. He'd link up with the academy players quite well yesterday. Silko Thomas's, Will Alves and players like that, I think. I thought he were very good yesterday, Monger, but you always look at your star players of your academy, don't you, Clibbo? But then you look at other players as well who are doing good things in other parts of the pitch. One man that I want to touch on with other parts of the pitch is Aluko. This guy yesterday was fantastic. To say he played at centre-back rather than his favourable position of a left-back, I thought he did an outstanding job.
I thought the pairing that we had initially will be the pairing next season, all being well. But this guy as a third option would be fantastic, and he had strength, confidence, power, pace, vision, and also when he needed to nut it away and just do the dirty stuff, he had that as well. He looked slightly older than his years, which is, quite a few of these academy players do, and I can't quite believe that he's that young. But you know what? He is the kind of player. He's only going to put a bit more muscle on as well, isn't he? He's going to develop. When he stopped growing, he's going to be a unit. So already you can see he's got the intelligence of a centre back, and he's a ball player as well. So he can do the dirty stuff. He can play it with his feet. And I also spotted yesterday something that I thought was really quite mature for somebody of his age. If correct me if I'm wrong, but I think after the goalkeeper Borza made the mistake, very, very quickly afterwards, Aluko had the ball and he confidently passed it back to the goalkeeper like, you made a mistake, mate, so what? Let's just crack on with it. Now, in the Premier League, I didn't see that with our team. If there was a mistake, you could see a big avoidance of trying to make this, of the possibility of making the same mistake. We didn't do that yesterday. Whether it was pre-season and that makes a difference, no pressure, I don't know. But I enjoyed seeing that, and I thought that was quite mature beyond his years.
Hi Joe, I hope you're good. Exciting players. Look forward to seeing. This is it for Leicester. This season is exciting youngsters coming through. You've watched them yesterday, and you think, you know what, you want more of a taste of what they can actually do in this team, because there's a lot of last season's players. You think, can't wait for them to leave. Give the youngsters a chance. In the Championship, you see a lot of youngsters get given that chance, that opportunity to rise in football, and they have done, and then they've gone on for big money. But this is what Leicester's thing is, utilising them well to their advantage. They've got exciting players. John Rudkin would have watched it yesterday from the bloody balcony they were on, even though we're on his phone bloody half of the time. But this is what Rudkin can see. You know what? Maybe we don't have to go and spend bloody 10, 15 million pound on a player. We've got somebody in the academy who's suitable to come in, do the job, and not worry about anything else. Because if Fast leaves, and then you say a Aluko comes in, you've got the experience there to help him. You've got Ben Wilson.
I wouldn't waste a place in the squad on Wout Fass, even if you don't sell him. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I don't think he's a good energy around the club. I don't think he's someone that will be a positive role model on the young players.
Yeah, I agree. Reece, Aluko yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me how good he was. I know people say, but it's only Peterborough, it's only pre-season. But in pre-season, you still learn, you still develop in your game, you get fit. You learn a lot more about yourself in the things that you're doing right and what you don't. How good was Aluko yesterday in that defence next to Connor Cody?
I don't know if you'll agree with me, but it reminded me of Fofana, the all-round package.
Yeah,
it reminded me of Fofana. Pace, power, confident on the ball, assured, mature, the whole package. He's got the credentials to be an all-round great defender for the future. I'd be more than confident to put him in a back three with Nelson and Akoli. I really would. I think he looked that assured, and I think because he's got the one attribute that can help him recover, pace. There's not a lot of pacey centre backs that we've got at the club, and obviously, with Yannick and Cody, if they make a mistake, they're in trouble. Whereas this guy's fast enough and quick enough to get back and recover. But no, I thought he was outstanding. I can't fault any of them, any of the youngsters. Louis Page, is it 16 years old? I didn't even know who he was before the game kicked off, but 16 years old, bags 2 goals, so, and that striker as well, brilliant. But on Aluko, I'd be more than confident to put him in the squad next season with how good he is.
Clibbo, Aluko's composure. You spoke about the Bowser mess up from the goal kick, and he collectively, they didn't shake, did they, Leicester? that, you know, you'd have thought when last season's team, they'd fold, wouldn't they, straight away. He didn't. The defence didn't. They sort of thought, you know what, I'm going to prove myself here. I am reassured. I can be trusted. And it will like Barzo, okay, then we, like you say, he made that mistake. He learned from it, and that's what Bowser would do. He's going to learn from it. So say Hermanson does leave and Stolasic comes in, Bowser is going to want that number 2 spot, isn't it, at Leicester? And this is where I think Aluko, you could see he was commanding yesterday. He was talking to Connor Cody. He spoke to James Justin. Even though he's a young player, you don't see that as much, do you? You'd rather in football see the older heads talking to the young players, but he didn't. And that's like, okay, well, you've been on the pitch a number of minutes, and this is how you're learning. And he did. The way he was just winning the balls in the air, his aerial play were good. Like Reece said, his reactions, the speed, the recovery, you know, he was quite good at. But do you think, how much more do you think Aluko will improve ahead of next season?
I think a key thing with young players is confidence. I think he would have taken a great deal of confidence from that. You know, it's clear that he's got a football maturity. I mean, he would have taken confidence from that game. You couldn't not. Yes, it was only against Peterborough, but Peterborough are a side that are a week ahead in their fitness for a start. You know, they're coming off the back of a trophy. All right, they didn't finish particularly high compared to their standards, but they're still, you know, a solid League One team. And we've only been in training, a week? We don't usually play a friendly till the second week. So you could say we're slightly ahead of the curve a little bit. And I think improvement-wise, the age he is, you know, his peak is a long way. So you'd have to say he's got a lot of improving to do, but why not do it with us? Why not do it with us?
I agree with what Manny says here. Yes, Frank, that's why we shouldn't be hoofing it forward. They are technical players.
Agreed.
Reece, Clifford touched on it, didn't he, quite well, that these players, these young lads have played with each other every week in the under-23s. They understand the dynamic of their game. They understand the importance of the togetherness that they've got. They know how each other play and everything like that. They learn together. It's not just one single player learning. They all learn as a collectiveness. And with this pre-season, with King at the helm at the minute until the new manager comes in, that collectiveness showed yesterday that we can be trusted to play with these experienced players, and we're going to learn a lot more about ourselves than what we did last season in the under-23s.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the younger lads showed more maturity than most of the squad did last season, to be honest with you, with how they presented themselves. They professionalism was on point. You know, they knew what the job was. And the thing that I liked about them most, Jack, as well, is they didn't sit on the 2-1. They went for the third. They wanted to kill the game completely. And that's what I want to see because there's so many times we're sitting on a 1-0, we're sitting on a 2-1, and then we're getting pressure after pressure. But these lads have got the mentality of, no, we want to score as many goals as we can, you know, to make sure we've won this game. And that's the kind of players I want to see next season, you know, powerful, you know, like just you know, mentality monsters. That's just what I want to see next season, and just give everything they've got. Yes, they will lose games. They will lose games, but you can damn well be sure that they'll come off that pitch and they'll give 100%. And they ran their socks. I know it was only 45 minutes, but they ran the socks off up until the 90th minute.
I think that's the importance. Their development is very much dependent on how the experienced players are integrated into that team amongst, you know, quite a large group of young players. That's the, you know, when things are not going right and they've not experienced what they're about to experience in the Championship, and they go, right, we do. It's so important. And I have to say, yesterday, JJ, I thought was colossal. I thought he led those young players.
He had a better game.
Through that bit of experience that those players were able to go, I'm going to go and express myself. And and I keep banging on about the manager, whoever comes in, or whether it's Kingy, that's the philosophy we've got to keep going forward.
I agree. You look at what James Justin did at Luton. They referred him as the Luton Cafu, their fans, by the way, when James Justin were a youngster at Luton. They did. They've still got a banner with it in one of the stands somewhere, one of the flags. If you actually search it up on Google, it is there. I'm not lying. Justin's experience will help these youngsters because he's been there before, hasn't he? He knows what it takes to get to the highest level, which he did. He come to Leicester, young age, developed quite well, but then his injuries have hindered him, hasn't he? But this is what he'll say to them. This is what I've learned. This is what you are going to experience. And this is how you overcome it. If you do make mistakes, it's not about that mistake you make. It's how you come back and come back stronger as a player. Yeah. Don't let that sort of defeat your mind. Frankie touches on here, the best form of defence is your attack, Clibbo.
Truth. Absolute truth. I mean, I'm not sure my heart could take a Kevin Keegan style. I don't think I can do that at my age every week. But I'll be honest with you, when all said and done, if you watch a 1-0 win and it's just, quite tactical and defensive, it's never quite as exciting as a 4-3 win, is it? You couldn't do it every week. But yeah, I think something that we saw yesterday is the potential for goals all around the pitch, and something we haven't done in a long time, since probably the days of like Houthi and going slightly further back to Walsh, Taggart, Elliott, and Gilchrist. We haven't had defenders that will come up and say, "I'm having this. Yeah. I want to pick the goal action." And I see that in these players. There's an eagerness to get to do it.
What I liked yesterday about Kingy is the physicality, the intensity, the way he played them, how they should be playing football. They go through players. You looked at Akoli yesterday, went straight through the Peterborough player. No nonsense, no messing about. Just get up, get on with it. I think Samore went through one of them as well in the second half. And the youngsters were doing the same thing. They're there because they want to win the ball. They're hungry to win that ball. That ball's theirs. That's how they sort of see it. And do you know what? For that to build from what King did, the physicality and intensity, to add that to their game, they're going to thrive off that, because that's how you achieve. It's about that physicality you have in your game, that mental side of it, that real mental strength, and that's something you add. And this is what I think they did well with yesterday. They sort of eaten up like a sandwich what Andy King was feeding them yesterday, and it made them better as the game went on. You look at what Jake Evans were doing yesterday, were moving. He looked in them tight spaces where he could get into, how he could affect when the ball isn't with him, but then he moves. And then the second half, you've got, who is it? You've got Silko Thomas, was on loan at Wigan last season, did a job yesterday in that number 9 role. You look at what Monger was doing. Who else did we have? Louis Page in there. Who else did we have? Jaden Joseph, another one, midfielder who can play as a right back, to be fair. So these youngsters are going to want to be hungry, aren't they, Reece, for things like this? For what the manager's giving them, they'll want to impress even more. And to say that goes a long way to next weekend when we play Leuven. They're going to have a lot more in their locker about them and learn a lot more about themselves with each opposition they do play.
Well, just on yesterday, it looked like a Leicester City side, a classic Leicester City side, where you, over the years, you do not give up that ball. You run your socks off, and then you have a bit of quality mixed in with it. It was like classic Leicester City DNA. Foxes never quit. That sort of attitude, what I've seen yesterday with all the youngsters running about. But I think Kingy is installing that Leicester City DNA in them in terms of this is how Leicester City plays. This is our identity. This is how we're going to play. And I'm hoping, because with how we've been set up, especially yesterday, it would be perfect for a manager like Danny Roll, who plays that same sort of intensity and has that Leicester City DNA imprint on the squad and stuff, with a bit of quality mixed in with it. So, like I said, it's really exciting times. And like I said, I've not known. They look fitter than Peterborough did, and Peterborough were a week ahead of us. You know, a lot of them look really, really lean. Like even Winks. I thought, he's been working them hard because
willing to learn.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, it's really encouraging signs. But I do think, though, if we don't get a manager, I think I'll be more than happy for King to lead them out in the dugout, to be honest with you, and continue working with these youngers.
Clibbo, you look at the youngsters yesterday utilising the full width of the pitch. You looked at overloading the flanks at times, high energy attacking approach to the game. That's what you really want to see from this team, don't you? To really be organised and know what the game plan is, and to utilising the full width of the pitch and stretching the opponent at every chance they get. Because if you looked at it in the first half yesterday, they were stretching it with either Mavadide, Wanya was on the right-hand side, which they were utilising quite well down that right. This is Leicester's advantage. They can use to find different ways of format to break teams down and sort of find that plan B for next season.
Absolutely agree with you. There is a point I'd like to make.
Go on.
Is next week you will see the more experienced heads come in, the ones that have played around the first team in the Premier League. I'll be interested to see if they play with the same dynamic, because I would rather see what we saw yesterday than going back to the old tried and tested but not much success, to be honest with you. Because I think those kids will have gone home yesterday. I say kids, right, Manny?
Manny.
I don't mean that disparagingly. I mean, in terms of football terms, they are kids. I don't want to see them. I don't envisage them going back to their houses yesterday night going, well, I'm okay with that. I can go back to the under-23s now and say that I played for Leicester in the first team. Every one of them is going to go home and go, I don't want to go back to the 23s now. I want to be part of that squad next season. And, 2 or 3 games' time, if they're still performing like that, I want to see a manager with balls to say, you know what, he is 16. I'm going to play him in front of X, Y, Z for a few games. And I'm going to show these players that they need to work, not just because they've got a name and they're being paid 90 grand a week.
I agree. And none of them are even on that type of money, and they probably will be in the future at a bigger club. Let's be fair, because that's how the pathway goes in football. You start young, you progress your career. Monger will be at a big club at some point. I'm very sure of that one, with how good he is in his qualities and that. But right now, he's just got to let his feet on the ground.
Yeah,
realise what he can be and how he works to get there. But Manny, how do Leicester utilise this academy? I mean, you'd have watched the game yesterday. Who really impresses you, and which players do you think we could actually utilise in the Championship next season?
Most talented player we have is Jeremy Monger. Boy's sensational. You see how he's just so easy. It's not just the fact that he can beat a man; it's just that he can do it effortlessly.
Yeah,
and he could take you. He could step over, go left. He could step over, go right. He's got both options. He could play left. He can play right. He's 15. He's 15. Do you know how mental a 15-year-old can do this already at this level? And obviously Peterborough, you can see he's just so far above their level. Fair play to Peterborough. They gave us a good workout yesterday, but this boy he's too good for the Championship. Let's be honest. He's way too good for this league. So I'm very pleased that he signed that contract. That is such a massive, massive boost. We can't underestimate that. That could be like, £100 million player re-signing for an extra few years. Imagine what that boy can do. Now, we can't overdo him. We can't overuse him. We don't want him to break down. For Clibbo will remember Jack Wilshere, what happened with him when he was young. He was 16 and he played like 50 games under Wenger for Arsenal that season. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He outplayed Xavi and Iniesta one game against Barcelona as a young lad. But then he got an ankle injury and he was never quite the same. And then he got another injury and he was even worse. And then he got another injury and the ankle injury came back. And same with Fernando Torres. Michael Owen did his hamstrings. Fernando Torres did his hamstring. So because he's one of the fast switch players and he but his pace, his dynamism is such a key characteristic. You can't overplay him. But, same with these other kids. Lewis Page, same thing. Aluko. You would hope that they would get 15 starts. And my theory is that you select the home games where we're playing perhaps the weaker teams when you're expected to have less pressure on you, a lot more of the ball because they're technical players. Don't put them away in November when you're away to Middlesbrough and it's peeing it down and everyone's on your case. That's not the right situation. So if you're selective about when you give these boys game time, give them that experience, and then 16 becomes 17, 17 becomes 18, and at 19... some of these boys are going to be absolutely on fire.
Agreed. Boys, let's touch on one man. I've got a few more of them to actually touch on, to discuss. But Wanya Marcel, I mean, this guy has had first team football at Leicester City. Manny, you'd remember his time under Enzo Maresca. Did score a goal. I think it was against Cardiff in the Championship, which this guy yesterday was utilised quite well on that right-hand side. The only thing I did sort of pick out with him yesterday was his final third, his last piece to his puzzle. And that's something he needs to develop a lot more on and work on. What's your thoughts on Wanya Marcel?
Well,
go on, you boys take it.
Oh, cheers. Well, it's like what you just said, Jack. Like it was very good in 90% of his work. Just that final cutting edge was just lacking for me. And he had the same problem when he came through under Enzo, but he was a lot more raw under Enzo. Where yes, I think he looked a little bit more mature, a little bit more cultured in his play. But he really does need to work on that final piece of the puzzle, which is his end product. Don't get me wrong. I think I like the way he drives at defenders. It's just that same mentality. I don't care who the fullback is. I don't care if it's Danny Alves or whoever. I will drive at you and I'll give you, I'll take you on. But it's just that he needs to add goals and assists to his game, which I'm sure he can do. Still at a young age. How old is he? 21, 22?
I'm going to say 21.
Manny's got his computer, so I think
I'll have a peek for you. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, but yeah, if he's still at that young age where he can still develop his game, and hopefully he'll get a lot more game time than he did under Enzo, because Enzo straight away just dropped him out of the squad.
Sorry, I think he suffered yesterday for the fact, and I think I alluded to it yesterday, Jack, that there was not a real natural number 9 in there, and there was nobody with height, so he struggled to find the little fox in the box, the clever movement, and even just to launch one over, into an area. There was nobody really big. I think we've lacked height for quite some time, really, or we've lacked anybody that uses their height well. Let's say we've got 2 giants in the team, or in the squad, but I think that's something I would like to see. And I don't mean like the old-fashioned Ian Marshall, who I did love, but I mean somebody that can jump, and when you need to stick one in the 90th minute because we're losing 1-0, and Marcel might be handy there. I think he has improved, I really did, and I did like him when he played for Enzo. A nice raw talent, and I'm glad he went out on loan in experienced man's football. I'm not quite sure how well he went on because we kind of forgot about him a little bit, didn't we? But I was really pleased to see him come back and look like he'd been playing with his fellow young comrades for quite some time again.
I think he offered something different yesterday on that right hand
Yeah.
side for me. I think the pace is there, the energy, the way he wanted to take on players on. Like, I think the one way he took on that Peterborough player on the halfway line and got down that right hand side. The only thing I would critical of him was take your man on. You're one on one with your man. You've got plenty of space to run into. Go and do it. But the only thing he did was he slowed down the play and then went backwards. I'm thinking, this is confidence sort of thing for him to push up on. I don't know if Manny sort of looked at it yesterday in the first half with it.
I like him. You know, he's my kind of player, isn't he? He's small, he's quick, he likes to take a player on. The problem that you've got though is you can't keep everybody, right? And you can't give game time to everybody. So we want to give, ideally, people want to give Casey game time. You want to give this guy game time. But we know that Fatawu is going to start down the right wing, whoever. So which one of these two? You can't keep them both and then give them 5-10 minutes each. They'll just sit there getting 5-10 minutes every other game. It's a waste of an asset. So you've got to basically decide who do you want to keep and who do you want to let go. On the basis that McAteer, you could get £10 million for it. I think I'd rather sell McAteer for 10 million and keep Wanya as my backup right wing. Well, he might even be third choice right wing if Jeremy Monger ends up playing right wing, although I want to keep Jeremy Monger in the 10 slot myself. So, you know, what do you do with all these guys? You know, don't forget, we've got Ayus and Cordova Reeds as well that are supposed to be covering right wing. You can end up with 5-6 right wingers. The guys who could cover the slot anyway. So I think we need to trim the squad. We need to reduce the amount of money that we spend full stop. It's not just about the PSR in the short term. But if we go up, we need ammunition, right? We need ammo. So if we've got the money to spend, but the PSR doesn't let us spend it, it's because we're spending too much money. So trim down the amount of money that you spend so that when you do go up, you can give it a more aggressive go. We could give it 100 million, 120 million. But the last time, we could only give it a 60 million go because we already had so many big wages on our books. So if which is a big if, boys, isn't it? If we can, you boys mentioned Wout Fast earlier, he's a big earner if you can shift him, if you can shift Winks, if you can shift Skip, if you can shift Vestergaard, Cody, Ayu, Cordova, Reed. No coincidence, I'm talking about all the old guard apart from Skip. If you can shift these guys, I think yesterday showed that we wouldn't miss them. I don't see any difference in quality between Lewis Page and Harry Winks. Granted, Harry Winks is going to be more consistent, more robust, more, you know, he'll be an average height. But this boy's learning his trade. You factor that in, and then you'll reap the benefits down the line. So that's up to you boys. Okay, if I gave you two options, which one would you rather take? Go up this next season, but with, you know, using the experience of Ayus and Cordova Reeds, and let's assume that they play and that they're doing well, so they get you up, right? So they'll have done well to get you up. Or do you want to say, okay, I might not quite get up this year, we might be playoffs, but I want to give these kids 30, 40, 50 games over the next couple of years. And then whenever we do go up, whether is this season or next season, we go up with a completely different team. We go up with a team of 19, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, plus then a couple of additions on top. Which one do you prefer?
I'm going to answer that. I've been watching Manny on streams, and I have to say, guy talks a lot of sense. I'm almost 99% agreeing with most things he says, and I don't really disagree with what you're sort of alluding to there. My only problem is how the game has changed financially. I think if you was to make a snap decision, you'd want to play in the Premier League because of the money aspect, and none of us really know about how bad the finances are. Now, in an ideal world, I could take a season in the Championship and develop these players, but then there's the other point to that where you could potentially lose a lot of them for Championship money rather than Premier League money. So, but in an ideal world, I agree with you, Manny. I'd love to see these develop, and if we didn't make it up, we didn't make it up.
The only issue with the just going up is we'll probably go back down again though. So you might get 100 million year one, but then you're back in the same situation, and you know, and after a year again. What I want to do is build a team that's, say, 19, 20 with a lot of the kids, plus some 24, 25, 26-year-old mixed in as your experience. And then that team just doesn't just, if it stays up, then it's only going to get better from that point onwards. So you stay up, and then you stay up not just 1 year, but you stay up 2, 3, 4, and you build upon that. And then when you end up selling these kids, because they kept you up in the Premier League, they're the ones who are going to get snapped up. If you have experienced players that keep you up, no one's really going to buy them because they're run seal. You know what they're going to do. No one gets excited by it. But the kids, Lewis Page keeps you in the Premier League as an 18-year-old, say. My God, what's his value then? Dean Howson just was an 18-year-old, just played loads of games for Bournemouth in the Premier League, went to Real Madrid for 50-odd million. And then you start generating massive amounts of income, which is what we did at peak. And then it's down to us not to waste it on rubbish. You know, we've got to elevate the quality of kids that we have in our academy then. So now we start going around Barcelona and pick 12-year-olds that, you know, that they don't want to do. We start throwing a few extra quid, you know, a backhander to mum and dad. We buy you a little house, you know, those kinds of things. And you build from foundation upwards, not just short-termism thinking that I just got to think about the next 12 months. That's how you get yourself in a mess. You've got to have, as boring as it is, you've got to have that old-fashioned 10-year plan.
And it's why it's so important to get this next appointment right, so that we don't give 60 million like we did to Cooper to piss up the wall.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I'm in agreement. That's what happened last season. We gave them all this money and it got wasted. We didn't go for quality. We went for experience, and look where that got us.
Look, in the olden days, managers used to get a longer average time as being a manager, so it kind of made sense to give them a lot of power because this guy's probably going to be here 2-3 years at least. Nowadays, the average is like 14 months or something silly like that. You just don't. So if you sign a player on a 5-year contract, but your manager's there for 14 months, then you're stuck with a player for over nearly 4 years that the next manager doesn't want. Then the next manager brings a bunch of players in that he likes, but he's gone in 14 months. And now the third manager ends up with 2 sets of players that he doesn't want, all still on long contracts, all that don't interconnect. They're not designed to work together because they come from a different idea. So it doesn't make logical sense to let a manager pick those players. He can have an influence, of course. He can say, look, I want a winger of this type. What have you got? And then it's down to you to say, if he fits in with our overall idea of how we're going to do things, then, okay, manager can have an influence. But you cannot give, even my beloved Enzo, you can't give Enzo, because look, Enzo said, I want Yannick Vestergaard. And you've got to be strong enough to say, look, I know what you want, Enzo. You want a passing stretch centre-back, right, who's big and strong. Okay, can we find you someone who's 10 years younger than Vestergaard? Instead of giving this guy 3-year contract on massive wages, can we find you a 23, 24-year-old instead? And we're not going to give this guy a 3-year contract. You've got to take those to be strong enough to say to the manager, no, and this is why no, because it doesn't fit in with your overall ethos. That's why I keep always go on about Brentford and Brighton, because those decisions are not made by the manager. They're made above the manager. And if those decisions are made well, like they do at those 2 clubs, then you have that continuity. Never mind who the manager is, you have that continuity through time. And that's why these clubs are really thriving at the moment.
This is what Dave says. The club has to change with the times. Football nowadays is data-driven. It's analysis. Every manager uses it now. You look at the Thomas Franks. They use data. They know what to do, which players they're bringing in, and which ones fit the system. And then they don't know what manager's going to come in next. Well, you can't really say that with Brentford because of who they have brought in and who they've appointed. So that's kind of I don't know what sort of appointment that one is. I don't know how it's going to get them around. But one thing I want to discuss is this man, Jake Evans. This lad is another one who has looked good in the under-23s. Reece, how do you fit Jake Evans in this module?
I thought he done well yesterday. I thought he kept it simple at times. Just playing the simple pass, didn't do anything too fancy or anything. I do think though, because I think he struggled a bit to get into the box as a number 9 because He's not naturally a number 9, is he? He's more utilised on the wing. But I do think the club will try and integrate him into a striker, because we've not got many strikers at the club, and we're probably going to have to use Patson Daka next season if we don't sign anyone else. But no, I thought he'd done well. I thought he'd done okay. I do think he'll be another bench player next season. Hopefully, I don't know if he's got the kind of physicality to start yet, but he's got a bright future. He's got a lot of potential. But so yeah, I hope to see him a lot next season as a striker. I'd like to see him utilised as a striker and bed him into that number 9 spot.
Manny, this guy's versatile, isn't he? He can play out wide. He can play down the middle. What's your initial thoughts on Jake Evans?
Him, like the others, they're all versatile. Actually, they're all been trained. That's one of the benefits of the academy system. You don't get pigeonholed in one position. You get taught to play. You might find yourself in this position on the pitch. You might find yourself in that position on the pitch. Are you comfortable? Are you calm? Can you handle that situation? Jake can play left. Jake can play right. Jake can play emergency striker. He could probably do a job in the 10 slot. He looks like he has got a bit of speed about him. He looks like a bit of a finisher. What he's got to learn to do is watch a lot of Vardy clips, that boy. Watch a lot of Vardy clips. Watch how you make a run over 5 meters just in front of the centre back in a penalty box. How do you sneak in front of him and use his small, depends what striker. He's a small person, but use that to your advantage. That means you have a low centre of gravity. You're going to be quicker off the mark. You'll be able to nip in front of people. Vardy's not a big striker. He wasn't a giant, but he was smart. I would be on the phone to that lad and say, could you fancy coming back down to Seagrave and give us a few pointers a bit? Tell me about the runs that you make. Tell me about what the trigger is. Tell me about what do I need to suggest to the midfielder that I need to give him a little message. So I'm about to spin the defender and go in behind. So you need to launch it over the top. All these little things. Is a striker such a unique position? It's slightly different to the wing areas. He needs to practice, which I'm sure is what he's doing.
I agree. Clibo, this man, Louis Page, have Leicester turned a page with the academy going into next season? Is the big question with the Foxes now. Louis Page scored 2 goals yesterday. He looked very impressive. He looked composed. He's a box-to-box midfielder. He can do the attacking side of his game and the defensive side. He's very composed. He's very physical. And yesterday, I thought he had a fantastic half for Leicester in that second half. He developed as the game went on. And this guy's also in the England setup as well. So it shows how much of a development he really has. He's still young. I think he's 16 years old, Louis Page. So this guy's another exciting youngster.
I've got pants older than that. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I mean,
I don't really want to hear that one for Clibo.
You borrowed them. Anyway.
The
thing is, what I loved about him was the sheer arrogance of those finishes. I mean, you don't see that from 16-year-olds. I mean, it was just. I mean, I like the second goal. I thought it was just. I had a little smile on my face. I clapped. I was watching it on my tablet and I was like, well done, lad. But the thing is, the first goal, when Monger cut in, from the moment he got that ball, I knew, because I seen that guy, you could see that was a drill that they've used. You could see him just drifting, 18 yards, and you just see he was ready for it. And it's something that they've done time after time, like a boxer. And he just put his foot through it. And 9 times out of 10, if you put your foot through it, the keeper's not going to get there because pace of the ball. He knew exactly what to do there. And that little finish on the second one, just quality. Whether he's going to get many starts, I would suggest probably not. But I would, again, you can make a case for him being in the squad for a reasonable amount of games. Like you say, it's a 46-game league. You've got cup competitions. Why not? But again, I think with these youngsters, and I think Manny will agree, and I think Reese will agree, get them in there with the right experienced players. Like I said, JJ yesterday, I thought he just did a great job marshalling them, talking to them, leading by example, and I think that will make them grow. I think if we play predominantly kids, and when they start to, the lack of experience, we don't want to shoot their confidence down. So I think it's really, really important that we keep experienced players around, but the right ones.
Which ones? Which ones would you keep?
Well, for certain, the two older right backs that we used yesterday, for certain. I would suggest. I mean, I don't know.
Hamza's got to be an option. Hamza.
Oh, yeah, Hamza. I mean, I'd be interested to see what he does, because I think he'll start against Leuven next week. And he looks very relaxed around the club and at the training ground. I mean, he's getting on a bit now. He's your age, Reece. So, cracking on in terms of football anyway. And I never think Hamza's going to be a Premier League player. So if he can do a job for us here in this league, bring the youngsters on, tell him about his experiences as a youth player growing up through the ranks, I think that's really, really important. Yeah, good shout.
Manny, I know you spoke quite highly about Louis Page. What's your initial thoughts on him and going forward?
It was love at first sight with Louis Page. I mean, I don't want to go too overboard, but I was doing the watch along with the other boys at BTG, and took me 2 minutes. I watched it back. It took me 2 minutes 19 seconds to realise the kid was a baller. 2 minutes 19. That's a new record for me, because in 2 minutes, 2 minutes 19, he touched the ball 3 times already in 2 minutes 19 in a central spot. Once under pressure, I think one was just a crisp pass. One was a nice get out of jail when a guy's pressuring you and he just moved to the side. And the third was another bit of composure. But that was the key word. He looked composed. He didn't look like a 16-year-old kid who was a bit frantic and trying too hard to impress. He just looked like, I've got this under control. Don't worry, Lewis is here. Yeah, just give me the ball. Yeah, I'll feed it back to you. Yeah, I'll ping the ball over to him. Oh, there's option. I'm going to get in the box. The ball comes to you. Does he thrash at it? Nah, cool as you like. Pop one against the keeper. One just lovely opens his foot out technically, just like this, like it's a training ground game. Just like it was a training ground game, but it's just so nonchalant. That's the way to describe it, and that means it's so easy. And if it's so easy, then when you add 2-3 years of physical development, experience, brain smarts and learning the game, learning off some of the other smarter guys in the squad, and a good management as well, then, Jude Bellingham at 19, 20 was a midfielder that's capable of being player of the year at Real Madrid. This kid, Doué at PSG, is 19. He's absolutely frightening player. Ridiculous. Yamal's 17. He's dominating. I don't think it's beyond the realms of madness to say that. And by the way, Lewis Page is 17 pretty soon. I think in like a month or two. So he's pretty much 17 soon. So in 12 months' time, roughly, if we got promoted, he's an 18-year-old. I'd say he's pretty close to ready. So if he's pretty close to ready in 12 months for the Premier League, at least to be getting 20, 25 games, that means we need to give him 15 odd games this season. So give him 15 games, which is 2/3 of the home games. Play him. I would start him. Give him an hour in each game. Give him 15 times an hour and see how he gets on. If he starts to struggle, then back off. If he starts to just walk and cruise through the games and he's physically feeling fine, and the medical department say no risk of injury, he looks like his body can handle it, because one 16-year-old kid or one 17-year-old kid's different to another. If you want to see, if you ask Clibo, you want to see Emil Heskey at 18, 19, he was an absolute monster. He was smashing about guys who were 28. It was absolutely, like, physically, old pro centre-backs who were tough. He was knocking about like they were nothing. So everybody is different, and are they physically strong enough? My one worry with Michael Golding, for example, was that I thought he looked a bit like bit skinny. He still looks like he needs to physically develop. Whereas Jeremy Monger, he looks like his legs match the size of his body, and there's muscle and there's pace and there's power there. So every individual's slightly different case. But back to Lewis Page, it wasn't just the fact that he's tall, so he's going to get taller. You can see him, he's going to be a big, strong midfielder. He just looks like he probably came out of Man City's academy. That's what he looks like to me. He's been in Barcelona's academy. I was watching some of Real Madrid the other day, and they've got this new Garcia, this new young lad who's absolutely brilliant. Just looks like this boy is just born to play top quality technical football.
Agreed.
Yeah. Next one, Silko Thomas, signed him from Chelsea. What was it? A few years back. Silko Thomas is in the Leicester's academy. Went on loan to Wigan Athletic last season. Scored that wonder goal yesterday, didn't he? Very composed on the ball. Ran at his defender, then cut inside and put it top corner. Clibbo, Silko Thomas. I mean, this guy can still develop. He's not as young as the others, like your Mongers and that, but he's still got some more to add to his game. What's your initial thoughts on Silko Thomas?
Again, in the 23s, what I've seen of him, been impressed. Again, he looks like he's a bit of a player. And what I loved yesterday about his goal, and again, it just made me laugh, is that, he was twisting and turning, and then he just said, "I've had enough of you, you idiot," and just banged it in straight to the top corner, like it was like sipping a cup of tea. And I just thought to myself, if you're a Leicester fan, with all the crap that's happened, just look at what that boy just did. He just nonchalantly said, "You're boring me now. I'm putting this where I want it." And that keeper's about 6'20". He ain't getting it anyway. And that's exactly what he did. And that's what happened. I think that is a key thing. That's something that makes a reasonably good player into a great player. Someone who's got that attitude. It's not always about the skill you have with the ball at your feet. It's about the thought process, the arrogance, the determination, and the will to say, "I'm going to do this, whether you like it or not." And I think he's got that.
I agree. Reese, Jayden Joseph, midfielder, did play yesterday for Leicester in the second half. Andy King was bigging him up quite well in the interview after the game. Another exciting prospect, he says, that's come through the academy, who no one had heard of before yesterday, not even me, but another one I thought controlled the midfield yesterday. Good on the ball. He can play various positions, like Manny said. When they're young, they can versatile in a defensive role, an attacking role, and or slap bang in the middle. So, Jayden Joseph.
Yeah, he looked very cultured. He looked very mature in his approach to the game. That's what I liked about most of the young lads. None of them were immature. The ahead of their age and stuff. And I do like. I mean, when I read that, what Andy King said about him, he could play. Was it right back, right wing, and
all these different positions?
Yeah, all these. Do you lads think that could be a potential? I'm not saying it is. Do you lads think that could be a potential negative to have all these utility players, or do you think it's best just to stick to one position?
I think they've all got a position that they are earmarked for, but I think with academies, that's the point of academies. It's looking at, because if you look at a lot of the players that have come through academies, they started off in different positions, and they developed into other positions. I think that's part of the role of an academy. And at the end of the day, if you've got a lot of injuries, these things will come to fruition. But I do think I've never been a fan of having lots of utility players, as we used to call them.
That's why I asked it, because I know you're not a fan of that.
No, I'm not a massive fan of it, but I think it's a different generation, and I think it's sort of practiced a little bit differently. As utility player in my day was somebody who wasn't good enough to play in a position, so they just kind of learned how to play football.
I wouldn't say these guys are utility players. I'd say they're versatile players, and
Yeah,
the European way of training kids is not to pigeonhole you and say you're okay. I think you're a right back, so you're going to play
yeah,
there. You just get educated about football as a whole. So it doesn't matter where you are on the pitch. You've got to be able to handle it, and they purposely put you in different positions so that you can understand what it's like to play in that position. So you can see it from that other player's point of view. And game intellect is not really something that we talk about too much. You know, how do you teach these kids the dynamics of football, the importance of shape, the importance of space, the importance of patience, the importance of when to press, when not to press in groups, when to press as an individual, when to hold off, conserve energy in the game, when to control the game, when to attack the game. All these little things that you could go through is part of a football education. So at a young age, I'm a big believer in education, mate. So teach these kids everything that you can teach them. With age, as they get physically older, let's see how they develop too, right? You know, some of them will grow into brick, you know what's it's. Some of them might not fill out as the way that you would like. So it's a bit early to start saying he's a this, he's a that. Like we see with Jeremy Monger. He can play right, he can play left, he can play middle. The point is, just get him on the pitch. Wherever you put him on the pitch, he's going to do damage. So, you know, depending on the player, Lewis Page, I don't care if you want to play him 4, 6, 8, anywhere across the middle. You know, he could probably play a bit more advanced if you want him to. He could probably drop back and play as a sort of quarterback if you wanted him to, in a Harry Winks type role. All depends on the manager's choice, but that flexibility that it gives you. So maybe one week your first choice player isn't there, but these kids have played those positions. They know what it's like. So I only see it as a win.
Right, so I've got one question for you all then. With the youngsters that are coming through at the moment, who are you most excited to watching next season? I know you're all going to go with Jeremy Monger, but if we had to go with other players as well, Klimbo, what about you? Who would you go?
I alluded to it at the top of the show. I'm really excited, obviously, to see the likes of Monger.
Yeah.
Really excited to see how one of the unsung heroes, and that's Alves. I'm really excited to see the progress that boy makes, because I've watched him for a few years and I really like him as a footballer. So I'm going to say Alves.
Reece?
I think for me, as an all-round package, I think it's Aluko for me. I think he's got every single attribute to be a top centre-half. Pace, power, good on the ball, everything, literally everything. It's like a Wesley Fofana 2.0, like I alluded to earlier. I think in positions that we need, I think for me, it's probably going to be him.
Okay. Manny?
I'm looking for someone who I think is going to make an impact like quickly. So, you know, there's lots of guys who are going to be there in a year, 2 years' time. So they're going to maybe take a bit longer to come through. But because it depends if we play back three as well, I suppose. But if we're going to play Nelson and Nicoli, which I think should be our nailed on, it should have been our team this season. Actually, that's what it should have been. We should never have let Nelson go on loan. He was already ready. By the way, Nelson, I think we checked. They say he's 6'3". He is not 6'3". He's 6'5". He's bigger than Nicoli, and Nicoli's 6'4".
He's a tank.
He is a unit. He's a big lad.
I thought he was taller than Nicoli yesterday.
Yeah, he is. He's grown. The stats haven't been updated. He's bigger.
The size of them both.
I think Aluko playing as a third, you know, as to sort of with those two around you because they're so big and imposing, is a nice trio. I like that trio. I just don't want to put too much pressure on Aluko too early. The one that I have to say that, you know, apart from Jeremy Monger, of course, because he's just a baller. But Lewis Page, because I think if we are going to sell Ndidi, I think Soumaré will go.
Yeah.
And I am, you know, we've had the boys at BTG been telling me for the last few months, don't worry, Winks and Skip, they'll be good enough in the Championship, they'll get us up. And I'm like, you sure? Yeah, they'll get you up, no problem. Then I asked them a month later, you sure Skip and Winks will get us up? Yeah, they'll ball in the Championship, not a problem. You sure? And now they're like, well, yesterday we saw Skip and Winks. They played okay. They did not have bad games. They weren't terrible. They weren't horrific. But there was a difference in intensity and intent. So whereas those two want to stay in the middle and they just want to control the ball, do their job, keep their shape. You saw Lewis Page. He'll do that, but when the timing's right, he's got the ability to get in the box. Now, he can get in the box, and he can shoot. How many times did you see Oliver Skip get in the box and shoot and score a goal? He's never scored a goal, even in pre-season for us. So this guy's playing in a similar slot to Skip, but this guy's got more end product. This guy's got the ability to get on the end of something as well. So I see more dynamism in Lewis Page than our starting players. So I'm interested to know. You know, I would gamble. I would go nuts. I would start him against Sheffield Wednesday, first game, Lewis Page, because it's home. It's Sheffield Wednesday. They're in a mess, and I don't want to. I want to see if he is ready. And if he has a nightmare and he starts struggling, then you can pull him off after 45 minutes and you can bring your Skip on if you really want to. But I want to show to the other kids, I have confidence in you. I believe in your ability today, and I'm going to give you a chance. And if you get that chance and you play well, then I'm going to give you another chance.
Yeah.
And you start building like, well, he's giving these kids a chance. You know, I could get a chance. Your training goes more intensity. There's a pep in your step. You know, that's quite good actually. I might use that again.
It kind of reminded me of Dewsbury Hall, how he got in the like he did under Enzo, where it could be that goal scoring midfielder that we could need. You know, because obviously with Vardy going, you know, all the goals we'd have to spread the goals about, and
Good shout.
you know, he could be that Dewsbury Hall replacement. You know,
Lefty
be that
too.
Yeah, and he's a left footer. So, and his natural instinct is to get in the box. I think he'd be wasted a bit if he played a bit deeper. I'd like to see him further up the pitch.
I think the beauty of him is that wherever you need him, he can play both of those equally. Like, he'd be good as a deep line midfielder. He's a good attacking midfielder from what we saw.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not go. I don't want to get too crazy. It's 45 minutes against Peterborough.
Go crazy, man. Go crazy.
The very first. But we've seen enough to get us excited about, let's see how he does in game 2. So if he does in game 2 and continues to, hold on, that this boy, that's his level. He can control these games. And then we're playing Fiorentina on August the 3rd or something like that. I tell you what.
If he proves his credentials against the David De Gea's and the Xhekos and that,
that's a different level of player when you're playing Fiorentina. It's a different level of bit. You know, there's a bit of edge, a tiny bit of edge to that, because whenever some fancy team comes in town, that's when you really want to show these boys like what I can do. So let's see. I really want to see him get like 45 minutes against a good quality opposition, not just a League One team. I've already shown you I can do it against a League One team. Now prove to me you can do it either against... Who's the next game, boys?
Oh, wait, so...
The Belgian club.
And what's the next one after that?
Fiorentina.
Right,
They look like
again.
the kind of lads. They look like the kind of lads to embrace the challenge. You know, like playing against these better players. You know, that they'll be like, oh, bring it on. I don't care who we play.
They've got a bit of cockiness, haven't they? Like the way
they have got a bit of cockiness and a bit of arrogance.
The way they play. That's what you need. Mate, you've got to be a bit like that. We remember Gaza and Maradona. They're just toying with players. Ronaldinho, just toying with players. You know how good you are, and these boys come across like, look, I know I'm a good footballer here. Like I'm at England level at these. That's the other thing. Jeremy Monger, he's England under whatever captain. Lewis Page is England under. You know, it's got to be. Imagine you're a 15-year-old, and out of all the 15-year-olds in the whole country, you're the one that gets represented for your country. You've got to be, you know, the girls at school are giving you a little snog because you're the superstar at school. You're the player. You're the big boy in town. You're going to get that bit of confidence when you go out to a house party. All the girls will be after you. You're going to get that a bit full of yourself. As long as you don't go in the wrong direction and start. You know, in our days, they start drinking too heavily, start partying too much, be out in crystals all night. You know,
Still.
Clive remembers that. Clive remembers that. Zoots, Palais de Dance, whatever it was, and all the old ones. You know, he'll be there in Brannigan's. Now, these boys, get to bed on time. Eat properly. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Sleep properly. Don't play bloody video games till 3 a.m. And don't interfere with your sleep pattern. Now, that's what they do, actually. They don't go out partying like we used to. They're on bloody PlayStation till 3 a.m. doing God knows what. Like, look at Ronaldo. Get to sleep. Eat properly. Get your beauty sleep. Get up in the morning. You know, do everything to your maximum potential. and you are going to have the most amazing careers. I say it's not Aluko, Page, Monger, Evans. All of these boys are Premier League stars of the future. Just got to keep your head on straight.
I want to touch on one thing. What James just said here. Disappointed not to see Sammy Braybrook. Seems after his loan at Dundee, he might not be the star we thought he would be. Thoughts on that one? Who wants to pick up on that about Sammy Braybrook?
Go on, I'll do it. I think for me, what it is, him and Will Alves suffered the same injury pretty much at the same time.
Yeah.
I think obviously Will Alves has come back from it stronger. Like he's recovered well and he's playing football again. I think Braybrook, he's kind of struggled to come back from it a little bit, and maybe the medical team have thought just go a bit more easier on him. I think, but there's no doubt there's talent there in terms of Sammy Braybrook. There's talent there, but I think it's more of a medical thing more than anything. We've got to be careful. You know, his bones might not be as good, as strong as maybe Will Alves is or something like that. It could be something medical. It could be anything. It might not be good enough, but we don't know the ins and outs. But I think he'll get a chance this in pre-season.
I think he'll go back out on loan again, maybe. To be fair. I like the player, the raving reviews about Sammy Braybrook, how good he is, and then he goes to Scotland. Didn't really work out the way he'd hoped, and then he picked up obviously the injury in that, Annie, and it's not the greatest of aspect for him to develop quite well, and it just hasn't been the same since. And maybe another loan would do him good over in England.
I thought strange loan. I thought Dundee was a really strange loan for a young lad. It's a long way away. It's bloody cold up there. I used to live up
blame the weather.
But they did it because
you know what I mean. That contributes to your mental state.
I don't know, Clibbo. The other way. Look at what it did look what Maddison went to Aberdeen. You don't get much more north than Aberdeen. It's on the bloody northern coast, right? And he went out there, and you want to put. That's what you know what I mean about. It's about testing them. You want to see if they've got the mettle. Have you got the balls to be able to survive in these tricky situations? And Madders, as cocky as he is. He fancies himself, doesn't he? He's like,
have you been to Dundee, Manny?
Do you know what? I haven't.
Right. Go to Dundee, then come back on this stream, and then say what you said.
We'll send you on a week trip there, Manny.
Too cold for me, mate. My brown skin doesn't like that.
And watch some Scottish football.
I need some bloody warmth. I wasn't built for that weather, I can tell you. No, it's disappointing. You want those loans in order to play for Leicester or to have a shot, you've got to excel at those loan opportunities. The boys just mentioned KDH. KDH smashed it at Luton. That's how he got back in our team, by proving that he was ready for us. So when you go in these loan shots, you've got to excel. You really got to stand out. If you don't stand out, then it's a second loan opportunity. And if you don't stand out a second loan opportunity, it's a
bye-bye.
Sorry, it just wasn't meant to be. And I think this he's a victim of bad luck, to be honest. From what I did see a bit of him actually, and they used to call him the next Modric, Sammy Braybrook.
Jimmy Bullard, didn't they, when he first came in?
The kid can pass a football, right? Yeah. He can pass. He's got a lovely passing range, but he is tiny, right? And so if you are going to be tiny, and in like less than 5'6", if you're going to be that small, then you've got to be lightning fast. You've got to be like Kante. You've got to be so quick off the mark. You've got to have super low centre of gravity. So you utilise, like I said earlier, that to your advantage. Yeah. Sammy Braybrook's not that kind of quick player. He's more, he would work in a slower pace of football. So I can see actually his career might end up going to Turkey or USA or somewhere like that, or even Saudi, where the problem is when people are on you in no time. I'm worried with Sammy's going to be able to do it quick enough. And with injuries, poor lad, you don't get quicker after a big injury. You only get slower and slower. So
you can't move the same way either. You can't move the same. No, you can't players like Monger. You need that little bit to get going. You need that, and especially with how small he is, you need it. And with a big injury like that, an ACL injury, it can Yeah, it's a big one.
Same with Justin and Ricardo, the same thing, ACLs.
Well, we're going to see it with Fatawi soon, aren't we? Like, we haven't seen Fatawi play for bloody ages.
Yeah.
And we're all extremely excited. I've gone on record multiple times saying he's my favourite player at the club. I absolutely love Fatawu. He's everything I love about football. That boy, on and off the pitch, his attitude, his character. I love everything about that kid. But is he going to be the same player? Because before, he was rapid off the first 5 metres. He could skin you for fun. He can cut inside, he can shoot. He still needed to work on his right foot and his delivery and stuff. If I want to see him play, and if I see the same player and he beats the fullback in the same way, then relief. But if he tries to beat the fullback and he looks like a bit more like Jordan Ayew stuck in the Mad Chugosaurus, then I'm going to brick it and I'm going to cry.
Do you know what the key for me there, Manny, is how he was last season, and that just the joy on his face and the daft camera antics after games. What I've seen since the injury, and particularly clips that we've seen on the internet, that's still there. And I think if he had any doubt in his mind about his future abilities, that wouldn't be the same. I don't think.
That's a good
He
point.
looks sharp.
Like
He does look sharp, and he does look sharp in training.
I don't
Yeah,
want to
it
go
does.
old school though, but it worries me when people start dyeing their hair different colours. I'm old school. You start doing that, you're like, come on, mate. You look like Cisco. What are you doing? But Abdul, I love you. You don't need it. You were beautiful as you were. Like, honestly, you can dance, you can play, you can move, you can probably sing, you can do everything. Don't start dyeing your hair ginger. You look like Wes Brown. What's going on?
Wes Brown.
But like, I pray honestly. It's a big thing that I want to see him, because if I see him, then I know that we've got in Mavididi, in Monger, and in him in Fatawu, we've got 3 players that from all different angles can really do massive damage in the Championship and actually get end product, goals and assists, old-fashioned goals and assists, not just do nice little tricks and skills, but actually get goals, assists to win you games, get you points, and get you up.
Agreed. Manny, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Anything coming up on your channel?
Yeah, there's the Locks is going nuts with all this Chris Wilder chat. He's not sleeping, he's not eating, he's doing it honestly.
It's not going to happen. It's not happening.
He's probably staring at his phone at like 4 a.m, seeing if no one's going to announce anything at 4 a.m. Everyone's asleep. What are you doing? So he's losing his mind. So he's waiting to do like all kinds of emergency streams at anything. But I think there's a call-in show tomorrow night. I'm sure that the boys that way. We might see 1, 2, or both. Although we see Clibbo go to the dark side and one of the other call-in channels on a Monday night. I'm just kidding. Tomorrow night call-in show. Wednesday Fox's Den, of course. I myself might not be back until Sunday, but we're waiting on some kind of announcement maybe this week.
Well, hopefully they can get it wrapped up now, can't they? And sort bloody pre-season transfers out.
Can I just before you go
on?
As it stands today, and you are allowed to change as things go on, who's getting the job?
Sausage roll.
Man's still on Danny roll.
2 rolls.
I'm going to be completely honest with you, Manny. I was Danny Roll, and then I listened to you earlier, and I'm like, shit.
And I sold you on King, haven't I?
You know what?
I sold you on King, haven't I?
Not necessarily sold me. It was kind of in the back of my head, but you kind of just pushed it forward a little bit.
It's different.
I am thinking more about him, yeah.
It's different when you actually see him manage the team. Like, you actually saw him manage the team, and you thought, he doesn't look like a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, does he? Looks like a guy who does know what he's doing.
Doesn't look calm as well.
It'll be wrong until the
scapegoat.
It's a good point, Reece. It's a good point. When he got the interview afterwards, he didn't look like he was nervous. What did they used to call him? Nervous Norris. He was cool, composed. Yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what our objectives are. This is what our aims are. Whoever's coming to take it forward. He looks very relaxed, and I think if we don't announce someone else this week, then if he gets to manage the next friendly, and particularly the Fiorentina match, if he manages the Fiorentina match, then he's getting a job for sure. But
Yeah.
I think he is going to get it, you know. I just think it's not just role, but it's role plus his backroom staff. You're going to bring in 3 or 4 new people, new faces that all cost money when you've got a team of guys who took the team yesterday, and then is anyone moaning about yesterday?
In the face of adversity, you know, sometimes, you know, great things happen.
I don't think Leicester fans would be against it, giving it King if it were the last result.
Well,
If
I tell you what,
They'd give him time as well. They'd give him time.
If they can bring in proper
Yeah.
coaches,
On here about
experienced
Wilder or
coaches to work with
Kingy.
him.
If
The other thing is,
if you put a Wilder Kingy poll on here now, I'm telling you.
Get Cambiasso in the centre. Get Cambiasso in the backroom staff.
the other thing with King is that a few of the fans are a bit worried that if we get some kind of young, new age type manager, that they're just going to bugger off at the first chance they get. I tell you what, I don't think Kingy is. If he gets us up, he is not leaving us, at least without keeping us up. You know, he's not leaving day one. He's not going to do what Enzo did and bugger off to Chelsea.
Right.
He would never hurt the legacy with the fans like that. He would never do that. So he might actually be the guy who would say, you know what, rather than looking at a mid-table Premier League club or a European club, how about we make Leicester a mid-table European club again? Do you know what? As I say it like a sales pitch. I'm almost like I'm convincing myself as I'm doing it.
This comment here is very interesting. Like King is talking about, like, yeah, it's very interesting comment because I think it's a media tactic to try and keep the pressure off him in terms of when the next manager comes in. It's just a way to keep it off his back and keep him from being under pressure. In my opinion, I think it's quite clever.
He's got to cover his own back, because if he comes out and says I want the job, and then the next manager comes in and now you're a coach or an assistant manager to that guy, having come out and said it's like Game of Thrones, isn't it? You're just waiting for the new guy to stab him in the back so you can get the job. So he has to play the game. The game is I'm not, no interest in the job, not getting the job. But then a quiet conversation after you win at Peterborough. You win the next game, and you see, you might fancy this job. All of a sudden, Kingy might have a couple of wins under his belt, and he goes, Fiorentina next, I quite fancy this, actually. The fans are liking it, the players are liking it. I'm quite enjoying this.
Let me ask you this, Manny. I mentioned this, and you, obviously, Jack, but I mentioned this to Reece earlier, and it was just my little brain working overtime. Now, if you look back at the events of when Kingy joined, we were in, like, pretty dire straits. Yeah. And they made quite a thing of it. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. But as time has gone on, I'm thinking, was this a tactical ploy, knowing that they were going to go down?
PR stunt.
They brought Kingy in, and under wraps, they've been telling this guy, just learn, because you might be the one.
Look, he's been fast-tracked, hasn't he? Like, he was brought in as youth coach, then all of a sudden he's first-team coach, then all of a sudden he's temporary manager, and it's happened really, really quickly. But there is recent precedent for this. Keith Andrews, the new Brentford manager, was Chris Wilder's coach in 2023, not so long ago. He was brought in 12 months ago to Brentford as a set-piece coach. So you promoted the set-piece coach. He's been there 12 months to be your manager from within. Now, in 12 months, Kingy's had 12 months here, but Kingy's had longer than 12 months. Kingy's actually had like 15 years. He knows their fabric. And I made this point on BTGs. The first thing you do as a manager, like, you learn about your environment. You learn the faces, you learn the names, you learn how the club's culture is, what the fans are like. You learn the history of the club. You learn not to play Danny Bloody Wardrude. You know, you should have learned that. You should have known your history. That should never have happened. And Andy King doesn't have to waste 2-3 months getting to grips with all that stuff. He knows all of that. He knows everything. So it's not Now, if Andy King was to be manager of any other club, I'd say it was too early. But weirdly, Leicester's the one club that he might be suitable for.
He knows us very well as well.
It happens at Barcelona. Pep Guardiola was 34 when he got the Barcelona job.
Yeah.
Andy King's 36. 2 years
It's the
older than
same-
Pep was. And
It's
Pep
the same
was,
thing with. Oh, go on.
No, you carry on, mate.
go
No,
on.
you carry on. No.
I was just going to say it's the same thing with Chris Wilder. He's only done well at Sheffield United because he's a Sheffield United fan. He knows the club. He knows how it runs. He knows the DNA. But he's gone to other clubs and failed. So if you give Kingy the job, he knows the Leicester DNA. He knows how he plays. He's been here since he was a kid. So if you are going to give it an inexperienced guy, it is going to be Andy King. But carry on, Manor.
Also, there's other benefits too as well, because if you've got an inexperienced young team and an inexperienced young coach, it feels like you're starting a new endeavour journey together, and you have that bond, that unity. And Andy King fully understands these kids, so he knows what their strengths are, their weaknesses are. Again, it's a point about fast tracking. So when you have that synergy, there's a modern buzzword for you, good one, synergy, with an alignment. That's what Rude said we lacked. That's what Enzo said we lacked a bit. But when you have that synergy between the coach, the manager, the whole club, the whole academy, everything is in the same direction, just like La Masia in Barcelona. Everyone does the same thing. You just repeat, perfect it. Then I can, like I said, I can see a strong case for Kingy rather than somebody else with his own ideas and his own this. I don't think Kingy necessarily has my way of playing football, as in his own way of playing football. I think he's willing to learn on the job. So we saw first half yesterday, he tried Enzo, didn't he? Second half, he changed it again. He's like, let's play around with these things and use these games like they should be and see if we can get this team going. And then maybe come start the first season, rather than panicking the fact that we're probably not going to sign too many players and we've still got a lot of dross in there. But there is something to be excited about, and it was a good start. Let's see if the next game continues that momentum.
Manny definitely works in sales, doesn't he?
It does.
I don't actually, but I've been a natural. A natural. My wife says bullshitter, but it's a different story.
Manny to pitch it to Runkin.
Look, I would love to have 2 or 3 hours of their time in the boardroom.
You on the phone?
And just chew their ears.
Yeah.
Was it you? Or was it on the phone to him yesterday? When
I wish. I would love to. I would love to. I'm sure that these people are, a lot smarter than everyone gives them credit for. They're not daft. They've been in and around football for 10, 15, 20 years. They're not as daft as people think. It's a combination of lots of multiple factors. But I do think that the one thing that we have been lacking as a club is that football nous, that football acumen about consistently. The whole issue that I've had is that the manager goes from one style to one style to one style to one style to one style. It shows that you don't really have an ethos in your mind, a clear plan of what you're trying to do and why. And people always think I go on about people like Willie Caballero and this Enzo stuff, and I do a lot. I do, but that's not my preference moving forward. Actually, I think we're in the phase of the games moving on from that style of football, and we're seeing the emergence of PSG in particular, who I think will dominate European football for the next 3-4 years myself. And the game is changing to a faster, technical, higher intensity game because people had to find a solution to Pep. You can't just let these people win all the time. You've got to find a way of beating them. And that's what always happens in life. You have a problem, it gets solved. So then it's on to the next thing. So I think we should be looking... I want to ask the board, how do you think football's going to be played in 5 years' time? And how do you think Leicester City are going to get to that point where we are with the latest flow of the game? And if I hear Chris Wilder or Sean Dyche mentioned in that conversation, I'm going to do my nuts and say, do you guys watch any football? Like, do you actually watch lots and lots of football? Have you noticed trends? Can you see what works and why? But they have professional teams of analysts doing this stuff. So I imagine that they do this discussion on a daily basis, don't they?
You'd think so.
You'd hope so.
You'd hope so, yeah. I mean, they've gone from Enzo ball to bloody Steve Cooper ball. I don't know how that's happened.
But then how does signing Oliver Skipp get signed off? I don't understand how you can have those people in the club, and some people aren't just going, guys, can we slow down? Slow down. What are we doing here? Like, why? What about him? What is your rationale? What's your methodology? What's your thinking about signing this player? Because it's 25 million quid. Like Bilal, no problem. I get that, right? He's 20 years old. He's a resale value. He's exciting. He's fast. He's technical. He's blah blah blah. Lots, no problem. But why are you signing this guy for this kind of money? And if people, God, I'm going to go on about it again like I always do. If you don't understand the importance of fast twitchiness in modern football, if you don't get that, I'm sorry. That is the secret. That's the secret weapon to everything. You saw the goals yesterday. It's the speed. It's the ability to execute at a higher speed than your opponent is what you can't defend against. You can't defend against that. So if you can control the ball and move rapidly and change direction, and when you get under pressure, move the ball quickly. Do you see Aluko's assist yesterday for the Page goal? A little drag back and a layoff from a centre back. Tight spot, pressure. Look at how quick his brain was to think. That's what I need to do. And then he's got the ability to do it. This is how the game moves. The game is not about 4-4-2s and lumping at longs or even 4-3-3s and 4-2-3-1s anymore. It's about squeeze them by the neck, and when the ball chokes out, we're going to gun for the goal immediately. And that is the way you do it moving forward. So I want a manager, just because it's my thought process, who thinks like that and takes the club in that direction. And we'll see.
There we go. We'll leave it at that. Manny, thanks for coming on. Good analysis as always. You know, even though you sound like a manager, so you know you might as well go and apply for the job.
Manager, I like it.
Or the director of football, maybe. I don't know, whichever way you want.
No, we're doing manager. Director of football is a bit presumptuous to think that they would give me that job, but at least get me in a room for a chat. Let's just start with a conversation. All right, let's just start with a conversation. I've got all kinds of ideas. I'm going to do something on BTG One. I've got like some other ideas that the club should be doing, and the wider picture of things like academies abroad in certain specific countries, where politically state. I've already done all kinds of homework into politically stable countries where you can build academies for cheap, where you can find super fast Twitch players for really low money. All this kind of stuff that the club should be investing in for the next 10, 15 years, where you do need a smarter vision than your opponents. That's why Brighton go and find Casado in Ecuador. Who the hell signed a player from Ecuador before? No one. They found him. They're ahead of the game, and that's where we need to get back to being.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Lox has said apparently the LCFC staff haven't been paid this month.
Just rumours. That's just
speculation until bloody. Then we'll chat. We're not doing that. Lox, you might as well just come off your phone at this time, because if something Chris Wilder comes up,
I tell you, he's freaking out about every bit of news at the moment.
I know. Cheers, Manny.
Get a good night's kip, Lox. What you doing?
Hello, you tell him.
Boys, but I think is it the first, I'm not sure if it's the first time I've been on. It's definitely the first time I've been on Maurice. It's the first time.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yes. Absolute pleasure.
Oh, well, no, the pleasure is all mine. I've long-winded. You've followed all your careers for a long time.
The Chuckle Brothers.
Sky Sports.
Pinky and Perky. Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber.
I won't ask which is which.
Twins.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I'd leave it to Cheers, Manny.
Cheers, boys. Bye-bye.
Take care, mate.
Clibo, thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it. It's been, what, nearly 2 hours?
Yeah.
Jesus, it's bloody flown by, and there's been a lot to discuss. And yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, mate. Really good.
Appreciate it. I'll let you go to sleep, mate.
Take it easy.
Reese, don't go and play that PlayStation, mate. I think you need bed after
Do
this.
you know what, mate? Do you know what? I haven't played it in ages because obviously since I've moved into my own place, I don't find the time to play it anymore. So it's kind of a good thing I don't play it anymore. So I'll be going to bed in a sec. So
Well, that's on your mind. You'll probably consider it. But no, cheers, Reece.
cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks to everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this stream. If you're watching on Playback, let me know your thoughts. We've discussed the academy of utilising the Leicester City Academy tonight. Hit that like button as well if you've enjoyed this stream. Thanks for watching. Take care. If we have any more Leicester City news, we will be live. Hopefully, we'll have a manager through the door this week at Leicester City. Hopefully. So hopefully the club can pull the bloody finger out and get it done. So who knows? Let's see. But thanks for watching.